Spend any length of time on this channel and you'll see that there's a lot of mistrust towards so-called legacy automakers from a reasonably large number of our more vocal viewers in the comments section. They usually pop out when we cover a story about a traditional car company which is talking about bringing or has already brought an electric car to market. And their comments tend to follow a similar theme, that anyone who trusts a legacy automaker to build a plug-in car, that's essentially any automaker that isn't Tesla or another new electric car startup, is a complete fool or worse. In fact, when I was writing this script, we had such a comment on one of our videos. Those companies, it's argued, have in the past actively sought to kill the electric car. They've participated in active campaigns to end zero-emission vehicle mandates and then crushed electric cars like GM did back at the turn of the century with the EV1, or they've seemingly gone out of their way to downplay plug-in vehicles by producing, quote, green-branded internal combustion engine vehicles that were anything but like Volkswagen and its, quote, clean diesel range of electric cars, which, as Dieselgate showed, emitted dangerous, illegal levels of nitrogen oxides and other nasty pollutants into the air. The logic behind those who argue against these companies is pretty simple. Why support a car company that went out of its way to destroy or at least hold back the electric car? Just like the fictional Stonecutter song from The Simpsons, it's pretty easy to imagine these automakers at one point sitting round a table, happily celebrating and clinking glasses for the hold-ups and setbacks of the electric car world. Except the reality today is very different. While some automakers seem to be holding on to the hope that electric cars will crash and burn, Toyota, I'm looking at you, others are seemingly embracing electric cars with open arms, or at least aren't screaming and running when the topic of building an electric car is mentioned. But is change possible? Should we be trusting these companies? And should we be supporting them or continuing to hold them accountable for crimes past? Are legacy automakers like Volkswagen and GM really, truly moving into the future? The answer, sadly, depends on the automaker in question and needs to be answered on a case-by-case basis. It's complicated, and it seems to rely on just how committed the automakers are in encouraging their own dealer networks to come along for the ride. If you watched a recent video I made on the subject of Volkswagen AG, the massive investment it's made in electric vehicle technology across its various brands, and the promise it has to bring more than 25 new electric models to market in the next few years, not to mention produce said volumes of vehicles in excess of 22 million units over the next decade, then you'll know that I believe Volkswagen is finally serious about plug-in cars and is about to make a big change in its future. This week, it made another step to illustrate that point, threatening to leave the VDA, the Association of the German Automotive Industry, unless it does more to focus on electric vehicles. Indeed, Volkswagen boss Herbert Diess is reputed to have told the association that its current de facto attitude to promote vehicle fuel types of all variations, including hydrogen fuel cells, hybrids, and low-emission internal combustion engines, is simply just overburdening and confusing the industry. Instead, he said, the VDA has to stop pushing alternative fuels and focus exclusively on battery electric vehicles. Unless it does, he threatened Volkswagen will leave the association. As one of the world's largest automakers and the largest German automaker, Volkswagen AG has some serious clout in this, and its threats should be taken seriously by the VDA. In Volkswagen's case, as I explained a few weeks ago, the company seems to have turned a corner and is deadly serious. That said, we should also acknowledge that the company sold more diesel cars in 2018 than it did in 2017, something we should be willing to hold Volkswagen accountable for and push it hard to switch those sales to electric as quickly as possible. The challenge for it looking forwards, that it engages in its dealerships and educates them on the benefits of plug-in cars, since they're the ones responsible ultimately for selling a car. Without dealership buy-in, it's game over. And General Motors, the company that famously killed the EV1, well, while it only has one electric car on sale in North America and is supposedly readying several new models for market, it too seems serious about electric vehicles, with plans for both North American and Asian market EV expansion. Some argue that the Chevrolet Bolt EV is not produced in large enough volumes to prove that the company is serious about the Bolt, and that it's also not spending enough money promoting it. Volume-wise, the Bolt EV does seem to be readily available in some markets, and not so easily available in others, and definitely GM could be doing more to advertise the Bolt. Its current ad spend is almost zero, and I want the Korean Bolt-style ads to come here. But GM's biggest problem isn't the car or the production volumes of the Bolt, it's the lack of interest from its dealer network. In areas where it has engaged its dealer network and there's a local demand because of EV-friendly policies, Bolts are reasonably easy to get hold of. In areas where this isn't the case, there's no real pressure from GM to push its dealers in the direction of plug-in cars, and that lays at GM's feet. So while the top brass at GM, Mary Barra and other C-level execs, may be on the electric car bandwagon, its dealer network needs a lot more encouragement and a lot more engagement and a lot more education. The Bolt may never sell in Tesla-like volumes. Some might say that's because it doesn't have the same street cred as a Tesla, nor does it have the same buying experience, which is something Tesla totally got right when it decided to sell direct rather than rely on dealerships. Nevertheless, the Bolt EV is a very good car. Don't believe me? Right now, the Chevy Bolt EV, at least according to Consumer Reports, has the highest reliability rating of any plug-in car on sale in the US right now. I will also note that I'm aware not everyone trusts Consumer Reports, and that's okay. And yes, disclaimer, I own one, but that doesn't mean I think that GM is working hard enough on plug-in cars, because honestly, I don't think it is yet. Sure, it has the promised investment, and yes, I do believe that investment will bring new plug-in models to market, just as Volkswagen, GM sees the writing on the wall for the internal combustion engine vehicle. But in order to truly follow through, I think it needs to work on that messaging and advertising a whole lot more. But we've kind of got off track. Should we trust General Motors? Well, I trust the Bolt EV, and I trust GM is going to continue production of it based on the investment already made by GM in both autonomous and electric vehicle technology. Not to mention the restructuring that it's gone through, which, just like Volkswagen, seems to indicate full-bore plug-in lineups are going to be the new norm. I guess I personally trust GM enough to spend enough of my hard-earned cash on a Bolt. And because I live in a state known for being pro-electric car, I know my ownership experience will be very different to someone living in the Midwest, where the pickup is king. Ultimately, rightly or wrongly, I believe that companies will do what's best for their shareholders. If there's money to be made in plug-in vehicles, or as I think is the case here, there's enough restriction on internal combustion engine vehicles that plug-ins are the only smart choice economically, thanks to toughening regulations around the world, then I think that switch to electric will happen. Can we trust that these companies will do the best they can when it comes to electric vehicles? Well, again, their job is to make money for their shareholders. So if electric vehicles are the only or best way for them to do that right now, they will make the shift. That kind of investment both companies have now put into plug-in car development suggests that both are now serious and to be trusted about their future goals. But let's not pretend that they're doing it purely for altruistic purposes. They're doing it to survive, partly to ensure Tesla doesn't walk away with all the market share, and partly to ensure that they continue to make money for their shareholders into the future. But should we support them? Should we trust these legacy automakers? Well, that's another tough one. It's fair to say that both GM's and Volkswagen's boards and executive teams are not exactly the same teams responsible for Dieselgate and killing the EV1. And for that reason, I think we need to acknowledge that with different people at the helm, each company will have a different direction, and thus we should probably react to what we're seeing and hearing right now rather than react to what happened in the past. After all, holding grudges only works for so long. Similarly, if the companies in question produce products we like, I think we should be okay supporting them, because at the end of the day, supporting companies that make the products we want, electric cars, encourages those companies to make more of those products, right? I know some have sworn off traditional automakers and vow only to buy Tesla from now on, but I personally would much rather see a slew of different options for different uses, different budgets and different markets from companies that we're happy to acknowledge are changing rather than condemn them even if they're producing what we've been asking for. That's it. Thanks for watching. Let us know if you liked it or you didn't like it below. Scribble a comment, hit the notification bell so you don't miss out on a single episode. And if you'd like to support the show, there are 3 links below that you can follow to show you how to do that. I'll be back soon with another episode, but until that point, keep evolving.